Not in the traditional sense where you walk in that next morning after you've put a solvent-based stain on and you see along some of your board seams and maybe even some of your heavy grain that stain has come back out, and now you've got a half day or a full day of repairs to go back and fix those before you can go ahead and put your sealer and finishing system on. The only thing we've found where you may get some color coming back is if you have significant vertical board movement and you've put maybe too much color on there and you do have some pooling down on the tongue, you may get a little bit of the coloration creeping back onto the surface. This can typically be easily and gently removed with just a damp rag and very light fingertip pressure. Make sure you don't use too much because you may actually pull too much color off of that. So again, does it bleed back? You may have some instances where it comes back just a little bit. I wouldn't call it your typical bleed back, but it can also be a lot easier to remedy and fix than your typical solvent-based bleed back issues. So typically, it's easy to clean up simply with a damp terry cloth rag, even after the chroma has dried. So maybe it's 2 hours later, you're ready to put down sealer, you come back and find some misses on your baseboards, or the next day, or even as you're going along doing your application, if you get some on there, you can wipe it off with a dry rag. If that doesn't work, try a damp rag. Be careful with getting that damp rag down into the product on the floor because it may sweep some of that away as well. Now, when trying to clean off some Bona Chroma off of some low sheen paints that may be on trim work, that may actually require some multi-purpose cleaner to adequately remove the chroma from that surface. Also, a couple drops of Dawn dishwashing liquid into some water and then slightly dampen the rag with that can work very, very well. But we always go back to our commandment of keep it clean, right? Whether you're applying this product or something else, we're not trying to get it on the trim and baseboard. We know it's probably going to happen no matter how good we're trying to be, but just know that Bona Chroma can easily be cleaned off of most of those sealed surfaces with a dry rag, with a damp rag, or maybe with the help of a little extra cleaner. Again, the great part here is they're not combustible, not flammable, so you could go ahead, rinse them out with water, reuse them if you wanted to for those same colors down the road, or immediately just throw your soaked rags and white pads in the garbage. They're not going to start on fire ever, so you have no worries about that. Not combustible, not flammable, rinse, reuse, or give them a toss. So the good news here is no extra prep work is required. Unlike some other solvent-based stains, if they've been sitting, more than 48 hours or 12 hours or 24 hours, you're probably going to have to do some extra prep work, even if it's just hitting them with a conditioning pad. With Bona Chroma, nothing else to do. Just ensure that no other surface contamination has gotten on the floor since you applied it. Maybe dry tack it to remove any extra, dust, debris that's fallen on it since you applied. Then go ahead and apply your normal sealer and finishing system, and you're good to go. Yes, you can do a second coat of Bona Chroma, but the additional depth of color, it's only going to be very slight at best. So it may be better to put a coat of amber seal on it, or maybe add just a touch of the chroma coloration to your next coat of sealer to get that additional depth that you want and avoid going through the whole chroma process again, only to find out that it only added a little bit to what you wanted. Yes, you could try that to reduce blotchiness, and if you try to take that step, the only thing we'd recommend is cut your original chroma color 50% with chroma clear, just to minimize any additional depth of color you might add to the floor, especially if that is not what you're wanting to do. You're only trying to reduce blotchiness. But also go back and take a look at the look video and know, especially if this is just your first time applying Chroma, that the look you get before you apply the sealer, it's definitely different and might be a little bit alarming. Typically when you add that coat of sealer on there, it evens everything out 90–95%. So your worry right now about blotchiness and trying to add a second coat may be not necessary at all. This is one of the magic things about it, is after that buffing in phase with the white pad, it can be walked on immediately. So this may be super helpful if you're doing a tight area, like doing a half and half hallway, or trying to squeeze into a pantry or behind a kitchen island. Once it's buffed off, it should be dry enough to walk on. Now, best practice is still going to be to use booties or maybe terry cloth rags under your feet as you slide across it. But if you're doing it right and you're getting all that excess off and truly buffing it out, it's dry enough to walk on, which can be a huge advantage on any of your jobs to help you be a little more nimble and work around things instead of worrying about if you're getting stain on the bottom of your shoes and then tracking that onto the rest of your floor.